philosophers, one of the great questions addressed and virtually unanswered is, how is it that the neshama retains its ability to be able to remain in the guf by virtue of food? In other words, if a person didn't have food, Rahman al-Islam, eventually his soul would leave his body. But the soul isn't nourished through physical food. Yet on the other hand, there must be some connection between the mozain of the neshama and physical food. If not, how do you explain the linkage? And how come the neshama shouldn't remain in the guf despite the guf's lack of nourishment? Many of the Mefarshi Torah quote over here the Rizal. It's discussed elaborately in the Sefer Shabbos Rabin, and the Magen Avram also mentions it in Siman Samach Vav. The Rizal explains that everything in this world has a guf and a neshama. Not just the human body, as you know it, which obviously has a guf and a neshama. Everything in this world has a guf and a neshama. Whatever you look at has a physical form, and behind it there is a spiritual entity that gives its existence meaning. As a matter of fact, the Nefesh HaChaim explains that the succession of worlds, of Olam Yisrael Yoinim, from the Shemei HaShemayim down here until this world, works with this process. The Nefesh HaChaim Volozhiner explains it. Down here on this world, you have a guf and a neshama. In the world above this world, which is much more spiritual, so relatively speaking, what was a neshama down here becomes a guf, and there is a neshama to that guf on a much higher level. And as you ascend the ladder of heavenly realms, what is neshama in the lower world becomes guf in the higher world. Given the higher degree of spirituality, the lower form of spirituality assumes a physical form. And the Nefesh HaChaim is masbir that this continues higher and higher and higher until Kaviyachal, the Rabbeinu Shalom himself, who is the neshama for all sorts of life. Another way of putting this into perspective, guf is something tangible, something that we can feel and touch. Neshama is the meaning of existence, but yet we have no direct way of sort of touching it. In regard to everything that exists on this world, there is the guf, which is the chelik hanigla, the revealed part, the outside part, the exterior form, the dimensions by which our senses can communicate with it and recognize it. And then there is the nefesh, the chelik hanister shabbat, the pnimiyus behind it. So when Moshe Rabbeinu was in Shemayim, and the Malachim put forth the argument, why send the Torah down here to this world? What they meant to say was, as the Torah comes down here to this world, it has to assume somewhat of a gashmiistic form. And you have a whole perik in Shas about what happens when a cow is struck by an ox. Now that's limud haTorah, and that has all the kedusha of limud haTorah. But it has to assume a gashmiistic form relative to this world. Whereas if the Torah stays in Shemayim, so it assumes it's more spiritual level. So why take the Torah and put it into a physical form? So Moshe Rabbeinu counted by saying, you malachim, you have the mitzvah of kavod etzavicha v'simecha, you have a father or mother, you have the Messiah of not stealing, and so on. What was Moshe Rabbeinu's answer? Indeed, by taking the Torah down here to this world. So the Shemais of HaKadosh Baruch Hu assume the Taryag mitzvahs as we understand them and know them, not to be jealous and not to steal and not to collect interest and so on. And in a way, you malachim have a point. Why take the Torah and send it down from a spiritual degree into a gashmistic form? But ultimately, Moshe Rabbeinu argued, which is a greater covet for the Torah Yayla? Us people down here who live only with the limitation of assessing things that are physical, and therefore it requires great courage to fulfill the mitzvahs of the Torah, not to steal, not to cheat, not to collect interest, to honor our father and mother and all the nisyanis that go along with it. You malachim don't have tests. You don't have an assignment. Up here you see everything is clear. So of course you want to sing and serve Hashem. But the real coverage for the Rebbeinu Shalom is when a Yid struggles with his amunah and withstands the darknesses and the difficulties and the trials and tribulations of everyday life. Then Ramban also explains it this way, mashma that way from his Akdama ala Torah, because everyone asks the question, what would have been had Koirach not seen? What would have been had the Meraglim not seen? Of course, when we got the Torah, we got all the letters of the Torah, nothing was missing. Moshe Rabbeinu was Makabel everything on Har Sinai. And the answer is, you would have had the very same letters, they would have represented things in a much higher realm. And as the Chatoim of the Dar HaMidbar unfolded, so the Tziruf and Yoisius tell us this story. But in these same letters are the Torah that we will be zeicha to understand by learning the Pashtus of Torah down here that would have been there had they not sinned. The Rizal used to learn with his Talmidim every single Gemara, 6 times throughout the entire week, each time in a deeper way, and on Shabbos he would reveal to them the Ruchniistic aspect of the Gemara. The Balatanya says there's a tremendous milah in us being down here and having to learn the Torah in the form of what happens when the shor strikes the parah, when the yak strikes the cow. When we learn the Torah down here, we struggle to understand how do you open a fire on Yom Tov, or what do we do with our new stoves that have electronic clickers. By learning the Torah in its most gashmiistic form, we associate ourselves directly with the entire Torah, with the etzem will of the Rebbeinu Shalom, as opposed to the Malachim, who in turn have the Torah in a more spiritual realm. Therefore, they are much more limited in what they can understand and what they can perceive without becoming bottled to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's great presence. In other words, down here behind the sunglasses of the physical dimensions and manifestations of the Torah, we completely associate ourselves with the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The higher you go and the more spiritual it becomes, the less you can do that, because the nivra would become bottled if he comes too close to the Bayrei. So to quickly review, there are actually 2 milos that we have over the Malachim. One is the fact that we don't see it, because we're limited to what we can physically perceive in terms of the dimensions of this world. Therefore, our Nisayin is greater. And we have the true schaz of serving Hashem. And the second thing is, because it's in a physical form, because it's sort of behind sunglasses, therefore, we can associate ourselves completely with the Ratzon HaBayra through limit HaTorah and fulfillment of his mitzvah, something which Malachim can do only in a limited way. Now, the next time you walk outside and you're thinking about the things you heard over here, and you're walking on grass, take a look at that grass. That grass has a guf and a neshama. Idvar Hashem shemayim nasu u'v'ruach tiv kol tivah. In other words, when the Rebbeinu Shalom said Yehi Rakia, or Yehi Ma'orais, or Tacha Yoretz Desha, so there was a Kayach Aleki that created this entity, whatever it is, that element of matter or of nature. And just like when the Rebbeinu Shalom said Nasa Adam, so the human being was created, the body of the human being was created, as well as the neshama. In every entity in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the body as well as the neshama, which is the real meaning of its existence. And the only thing, anything you see exists, is because there are shemis of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that make it exist. Like the Medrash says, that for every grass in the world, there is a malach that says, grow, grow. That's its neshama, that's its ruchniya. Mehai taima, you cannot take anything and make it non-existent. What we can do is we can take something and change its form. These Svarim explain. The eish, ruach, mayim, afar, the different elements of matter. And you can change something from afar, from a solid entity, to eish, to afar. You can convert something from solid to gas. You can turn gases into liquids and liquids into gases. You can take something and break it up into trillions of tiny particles and spread it all over the 7 continents. But what you cannot do is make it non-existent. only change its size and form. For that matter, we don't have the ability of creating a yesh miyayin. No one can create something out of nothing. We can take different elements of nature and rules of nature that already exist and apply it together and assemble it together and form it together in such a way that it now represents to our eyes a new thing that can do new things based on the combination. But the ingredients, we cannot make anew. We can change things, but we can't make something out of nothing. Why? Because whatever exists down here in this world, we see its goof, we see its physical form, and behind there are the shameless exertion of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's command that made it exist. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us in a world where He gave us the power to be able to change things, to manipulate the various different forms of nature, to combine them, to take them apart, which some people do for good and others do for bad. But because whatever exists is shameless of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's command to make it exist, what you cannot do is, you cannot make it non-existent. And for that matter, because it's Hashem's command, it is the neshama, which is Hashem's command that makes something exist, we can create a new entity. And that's the aside behind Kabbalah. Maisi Hashemais that effect various different changes in nature, but we won't go into that now, especially because we really don't understand it. But what we can do now is to explain how the Rizal teaches the pasuk, the famous pasuk in this week's sermon. Ki lo yal alechem levada yichya ha'adam, man does not live on bread alone. Ki al kol moitza pi Hashem yichya ha'adam. Schacter. When a person eats a piece of bread, two things are happening. That piece of bread is combined of a guf and a neshama. Your physical body, your digestive system, your gastric juices are going to take the physical piece of bread and they're going to break it down. By the same token, simultaneously, your neshama is absorbing the ruchnius of the bread, the neshama of the bread. The chelik hanister of the bread, the dvar Hashem that makes it exist, goes to your neshama, and the physical aspect goes to your body. Ki lo yal alechem levada yichya ha'adam, ki al kol moitza pi Hashem yichya ha'adam. The moitza pi Hashem, the neshama, in the piece of bread, in the sandwich, in whatever it is you are consuming, goes to your neshama. And thus, the intricate halachis of kashrus are directly related to this. For our neshama to be nourished properly, we have to adhere to all of the halachis of kashrus and the gedorim of Chazal. Now, l'maisa, with our bread, for the most part, what we see is the physical aspect of it, and the neshama is hidden somewhere. With the man, it was exactly the opposite. For the most part, the man was ruchni. It assumed only as much a physical form as necessary to give it the possible dimensions for the human being to have the ability of taking hold of it, putting it into his mouth. But for the most part, it was ruchni. It was more neshama than it was good. And that's why those that weren't particularly interested in a stimulation of the neshama weren't that happy with the man. They complained about the man. They referred to it as lechem hakloikel. They said, we never have to relieve ourselves after eating the man. The Be'er Chaim explains, the man was mostly ruchniya. There was only a small physical dimension to it. So much so that there was nothing there even for the body to throw away as waste. Most of it was directed to the neshama. And for those who had memories of sitting down to a good steak for supper and enjoying only the physical aspect of it and burying the ruchnius behind it, this was not pleasing to them. Now, the Svarim Mikdashim bring that making the proper bracha on food, and especially this is something to be stressed in this week's Seder of Yechalta v'Tzavata v'Yirachtas Hashem Alekecha, proper birchas hamazon brings out the neshama aspect, notwithstanding any pleasure to the physical aspect, but it gives the neshama more out of the food. And thus Chazal say amongst the many virtues of a proper birchas hamazon, a birchas hamazon with kavanah, a birchas hamazon inside, a birchas hamazon b'simcha, is that it brings parnasa to the house, It brings emunah to the house. It brings faith to the house because your neshama is being nourished. The Kotzker Rebbe pointed out, how did Avram Avinu bring emunah to the world? He invited the people in. He said, here, have a meal, have a drink in the desert. And then he forced them to bench. And if they didn't bench, they had to pay for it. He forced them to think, where's this food coming from? Who created this food? Who created the human body and its relationship to the neshama, its ability to survive, and so on? And from the physical nourishment, Avraham Avinu was able to elevate them to the ruchniistic nourishment. So Birchas Hamazon represents emunah in the Rabbeinu Shalom. If you bench properly, then you will believe properly in the Rabbeinu Shalom. So interestingly enough, our parsha describes the person being full in one of two ways. Yechalta v'savata uveirachta, Hashem Elokecha, in a positive way, and then teichel v'savata v'ramal v'vecha v'shachachta, Hashem Elokecha, in a negative way. Dr. Svasemes, well, food can be either one. It can either direct the person to emunah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is giving me the food, who is providing me, who is sustaining me. And as a net result, you become closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or the food injects the koyach of gaiva into the guf. And when gaiva sets in, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Ein ani v'hu yecholim l'adar k'echad, and as a result, the person forgets Hashem. It has exactly the opposite effect. Dr. Svasemes. So what signals the food to go in which direction? And the answer is Birchas Hamazon. A proper Birchas Hamazon is a conduit that directs enough nourishment to the neshama so that the net result of eating brings a yid to emunah, closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where in the absence of a Birchas Hamazon, too much food goes to the guf, and as a result, it's ben teichel v'savata v'ramal v'vecha v'shachachta Hashem Elokecha. The truth is, it's sort of all connected. If a person washes properly, there's proper until yadayim. So he eats properly and he benches properly. And if you don't eat like a yid, then you don't wind up benching properly. It's just the way it is. Thus, a shloim of Kolin types the pasuk of Yechalta v'savato veirachta. The savato veirachta. Fill yourself up with the bracha. If you eat properly, what you're going to remain full with, what you'll feel, is the bracha. And you'll be a better person as a result of it. A chassid once came to the Sadiger Rebbe and said that he's losing his feeling for davening and learning. And the Sadiger Rebbe asked him for his schedule. When he told him his schedule, he realized that he only ate one meal a day in the morning and ate nothing at night. So the Rebbe told him that's a nice hayet. In the morning, there's so many mitzvahs between tzitzis and tefillin and davening. At night, the person's much more vulnerable to the Yetzer Hara. But if you make a point of not shying away from the food, but eating properly, and you have all the mitzvahs of Netolas Yadayim and Birchas Hamazon and so on, then you have a full stomach to fight off the Yetzer Hara at night as well. A Yid told me that Reb Aaron Kotler Zecher Tzadik Levracha once took him into his room and he showed him in a closet a special pair of shoes. And he said to him, you should know that these shoes are very precious to me. As a matter of fact, whenever I have a difficult situation in life and I want to be mispalel, I open the closet and I'm mispalel next to these shoes. What was the significance of those shoes? Well, it turns out that the yeshiva of Israel Zalman Meltzer in Europe, before he came to Yerushalayim, when World War I broke out. World War I, of course, was going to be the war that's going to end all wars. Everything began to break down. Society broke down. The whole infrastructure broke down. And to say that things were uncertain was an understatement. So Rabbi Zalman told his Talmidim, he said, under these circumstances where we have to flee for our lives at a moment's notice, I can't keep you. Everyone has to return home. So the Talmidim all returned home. And one particular Talmid, who is today one of the famous Rashi HaYeshiva, walked home. It was an extremely difficult walk. The streets were packed with refugees. The roads were full of people running in different directions, bombing raids overhead, all the trauma of war playing itself out and living horror in front of them. And this Talmud walks home. And the walk took many weeks. When he got home, he was happy to find out that his house was still standing. He knocked on the door, and his mother saw him and said, "What are you doing here?" She said, "The Rosh Yeshiva sent us all home. It's a war." And the mother said, "If it's war, then you belong in yeshiva more so than any other time." And the child argued with his mother. The child said, "But Ma, nothing is secure. We don't know what's happening." And she said to him, "And here you're secure. Here in my house, I can protect you. This little roof is going to shelter you. If anything, Now, during a time like this, you have to be in yeshiva. You have to learn from morning until night. Please, I beg of you, my son, you know how I love you. And that's why I have to ask you, go back. So he turned around and he walked back. When he walked back, Mrs. Alma said to him, what are you doing here? How can you walk back during a time like this? So he told her what his mother said. And he told her, Mr. Zalman, he said, look at my shoes. They're so worn out. There's nothing left to them. But my mother just made it so simple that during a time of crisis and a time of uncertainty, the Gemara is the only certain place that I felt I had to walk back. I had the kindness to be able to walk back. So Mr. Zalman was so overwhelmed by the story that he went out and found a new pair of shoes for this Talmud that became a member of his household. And he said, these shoes, these worn-out shoes, I want them to stay with me for the rest of my life because they speak volume. They speak about the Amunah of a Yiddish Mama. They speak about Mesiras Nefesh retired. They speak about the Tachon. They speak about just an unbelievable courage. Please, I beg of you. So this is Zalman said, let me keep these shoes. And he kept them, and the Baron, his son-in-law, yarshed them. And to this day, they're used as something very special, sort of as a makom to be mispowel around them. Looking at the shoes generates a certain kind of Amunah and Mesiras Nefesh, a sense of direction, that we don't run the wrong way during times of uncertainty. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says that you should roll in the dust by Talmidei Chacham in the dust of their feet. You have a shoyse that summers the vreya, and you should drink with thirst their words. Dr. Sansaifa, you have to understand what this Mishnah is saying. The Mishnah is saying that these two things are linked together. Someone who is mesavik ba'ofer aglaya and pushes himself into the environment of Erlich Yidden and Talmidei Chacham and Tzadikim and does so with great Mesiras Nefesh for his children. Only such a person is zeicha to be shaisa b'tzames tevayim, to drink the words with thirst. If one is not ready for that Mesiras Nefesh, and you may hear the words, but you're not going to drink it like a thirsty person drinking water, it isn't going to be absorbed into your system that way. And that's what the Chaim is the remnant of the Pasuk. V'haya eikev, in the schus of Tishas eikev, in the schus of the ankle, walking, in the schus of Mesiras Nefesh of Nedudei Haderech L'Mokim Torah. Only in that schus Tishmorim are you going to be zeicha to hear, are you going to be zeicha to truly understand as a mishpatim ha'elah. But there's another prerequisite as well. Chazal tell us whenever a parsha begins with the lashon of Vayehi, it always introduces an inyan of tsar, like Vayehi b'mei Achashverosh. When a parsha begins with the lashon of Zahaya introduces an inyan of Simcha. So eikev, despite the difficult journey that it sometimes takes to achieve finding the right place, finding the right mahalach, it has to be the Simcha. At least on the outside. You told me of someone who was a neighbor to the late Simcha, Zecher Tzadik L'Vracha, one of the previous Gerer Rebbes, the father of today's Gerer Rebbe, Libaba Ben Chaim L'Chaim. And the late Simcha always used to greet him every single morning, even though he was only a simple person. As a matter of fact, he was a bacher then learning in the yeshiva. And the late Simcha would always walk with an entourage of people, but somehow they were neighbors. Whenever they met each other, there was always a pleasant smile. And Adrabah, for whatever reason, they thought that the Rebbe was busy and he didn't have the proper greeting. The late Simcha would be Teveya from the Bachurim. Where's the good morning? So one morning, Shavasa B'Tamis, one of the Bachurim, asked the Rebbe, and he said, good morning. And then right away he said, oh, maybe today Shavasa B'Tamis it's not proper to greet someone. Even though the Allah of the Yisra is only on Tisha B'Av, but perhaps Shavasa B'Tamis we should display more so our feeling of Tsar and Chord in the beginning of the 3 weeks. So the late Simcha answered, that's all true. Aber innersein, nicht in drauf. On the inside, not on the outside. The Bali Musar says the face of a person is a Rishus Harabim, it's a public domain. Now, do you have permission to take your garbage or extra boxes or problems and just leave it on the street for people to trip over or to get the press when they pass by? If it's your difficulty, whatever the problem is, you have to find a way to deal with it. If there's a problem, there's a solution. But you can't dump it on the street. A person's face is a Rishus Harabim. You're worried? You're concerned? On the outside, you smile. Why depress others? Why make others sad? Well, sometimes you have to warn others of an impending danger. But in terms of dealing with the difficulties of life, so the Chayvus Lvavus tells us how it's supposed to be done. In the Shara Prishus Perik Da'aleh, quote, Midas HaChasidim v'HaPirushim HaParush, somebody who wants to be totally separated from this world, v'halosoi b'fana, joy on his face. V'atelosoi, he's mourning the Liba in his heart. It doesn't mean depression in his heart. It means the seriousness that's kept in his heart. And the Mar V'Shamish says in this week's Pasha that this is the greatest yesod to breaking difficult things. Simcha on the outside, he ain't axus with me. I'm not going to the head of them. On the inside, his heart is nishbar al shnei maser kiroyim, full of tshuva and yerushalayim. Again, not depression. There's no place for depression, not on the outside, not on the inside. Rav Aaron of Colleen said that depression is no aveira, but what axus can lead to, no other aveira can lead. On the other hand, seriousness, the heart full of yerushalayim, the realization of the need to do tshuva, all of that necessary, but necessary on the inside. And tzaddikim who do that, who maintain the smile on the outside and the tshuva and the yerushalayim inside, they can be levatel lo b'gzeiros and demons. They could be mamtik the demon b'sharashim. They can sweeten the din at their source. Stop the marvasham. Shvaya eikev tishmon. The haya, the lashon of simcha. Eikev, on the other hand, is the lashon of anav, the lashon of shiflus, the ankle all the way at the bottom. This is the madrega of tzaddikim. Simcha the chesed b'fanav and the yira and tshuva believer. And with this type of an attitude, with this type of a display, Tishmu is a mishpatim eila. Tishmu, he says, is a lashon of a sifa, a lashon of gathering. When Shaul wanted to gather the people together and encourage them for the very first time since the days of Yeshua, that all of Klal Yisrael join as one unit to battle the enemy, that an attack against one Yid is an attack against all Yidden. So the lashon of the pasuk is Vayeshama Shoel Esa'am. Shama, from the lashon of hearing, or even more so, true hearing means understanding. When Yidden understand that we're one unit, then automatically everyone is gathered together. It's a spontaneous response. So if there is simcha, and there is eikev, and there is yerushalayim in the heart, then you're a tzaddik. Then you have the koyach to gather others, to be ma'ayir them for tshuva. Then tishma'un. The shematim v'yasisa ma'isa. The shematim, you will be able, through this attitude, to trigger a shmira, a protection on the people that are under your influence, and the asisa ma'isam, you will be masaking it, sweeten it, turn those bad gzeiros into good gzeiros. The only thing is, easier said than done. It's easier to tell someone else to smile when he's facing a difficult situation. It's much harder to smile yourself. Well, there's encouragement over here in the pasuk as well. The last words of Parshas Yochanan finish. Asher anochi mitzavcha hayoim la'asaisa. Rashi explains, hayoim la'asaisa, today, meaning down here in this world, is the time to do mitzvahs, to perform the mitzvahs. U'lamacha l'kabel tzar, and the reward for mitzvahs comes afterwards. The Gemara says in Masechtas Pesachim, Zayin varim nivru koydem shenivra oila, and amongst them Torah, Tshuva, Gan Eden. So if the Torah was created, explains the Mar V'Shamish, prior to the world, so it must be so much greater than the world. In other words, the Torah that we're zeicha to learn, the mitzvahs that we are zeicha to be mekayim, are just the me'en of the blueprint. The ability to understand down here is so little compared to what there is to understand. However, this is the way it works, says the Mar V'Shamish, and many others as well explain this. When a person does his best down here, and he uses whatever koyches HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him to understand, to learn, to use his time efficiently, to apply himself for Torah and mitzvahs to the best of his ability, then when he comes to Gan Eden, they are megala to him, they reveal to him the real secrets, greater secrets, behind all of the Torah and the mitzvahs and the ma'asim tovim that he learned. And that pleasure is undescribable. That is the pleasure of the neshamas in Gan Eden. Chazal tell us, Asher mi shabol lekan v'talmidai diyadai. How fortunate is the person who comes up here, meaning to the world of emes, the world of truth, and he has learning in his hands. He spent his time learning. Like of Dessler, it should have said that Talmidai Beroishai or Talmidai in his seichel. What do you mean Talmidai Biyadai? Is our learning in our hands or is our learning in our minds? And the answer is mind. Well, no one has the same kind of mind. No one has the same level of IQ. One person has a great mind, another person has a struggle. And true, down here in this world, the people with the great minds are the ones that assume leadership positions. They're the ones that we have to rely on. We need them. We need their advice. That's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu structured it. But up there in the world of truth, it's a whole different world. It's actually Mishabala Kanda Talmidai Biyadai. The hand, says Rav Dessler, doesn't measure ability. The hand measures hard work. How much was this person committing himself? The one who struggled down here, that Balavas, who was half alive and half asleep, who forced himself to that Dafayoni shear at night, who spent all of his extra money instead of going on vacation to hire private rebbeim for his children, to push them to the right places in Moses, despite his concerns about what's going to be with their physical well-being. This is the hand, not the mind. And that's what they reward for in Shemai. And it is to these hands that come with Torah, that they reveal the true secrets and great sidais of Torah. The Balatanya said, don't feel bad if you struggle to understand something down here in this world and it doesn't go, because for those who struggle down here, they're going to be privy to the real understanding of it when the time comes. The Mar Shamish says in this week's Pasha that is the Iker Tainug, the Iker pleasure in Gan Eden for the Neshamas HaKadosh. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Megala to them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals to them the Tainei Atayr. And we find in the Zohar Kodesh, he says, that the Neshamas used to reveal to the Tana, of Shimon Bar Yochai, many of the secrets of Torah that was taught to them in Gan Eden. And that was cause for great joy. Like we find by Adam Arishon prior to his chait, by Yinicheu began Eden li'avda u'l'shamra, Chazal say li'avda zu mitzvah sasei, u'l'shamra zu lo'isasei, that before the chet etzadat, down here in this world, he was zeicha to those secrets of Torah. But now the neshamis, in the Yolam HaNeshamis, are zeicha to be mekayim those mitzvahs, and to learn Torah in the way that Adam Arishon did before the chet etzadat. And the more they struggle to be mekayim, the little mitzvahs down here in this world, the eikev, as Rashi said, the mitzvah Shodom, dash the eikev that people tend to step on, and the more they're zeicha to truly understand in the world of truth. And that explains the Rav Shamish as the connection between the pasuk of last week's parsha and the beginning of this parsha. Last week's parsha ended at Sherneichim Mitzavcha Hayoim. Rashi tells us Hayoim li'asaysam u'lamacham l'kabel chayim. Right afterwards, the Haya eikev. Eikev is Rosh Tevos. Eden, Koidim, Bria. The Gan Eden before Bria Soilam. In other words, the real schar is in Gan Eden. And remember, the pasuk goes on. Over there, Tishmoin and Samishpat Amel, you will truly understand. You'll be zeicha to really understand. What you didn't understand in this world, why you had to perform mitzvahs under the most difficult circumstances, up there you are going to understand it. And that, and only that, will be the source of the greatest joy and simcha. This world is a world of simcha. A world where things are closed in. Where kiyum ha-mitzvahs becomes difficult and becomes a greater struggle. And sometimes we think that we're sinking deeper and deeper in the mud, and the bombs are falling on us, and it's harder to make that trek to be mechanech our children, to learn, to daven properly. But bear in mind, you want to keep smiling on the outside when it's difficult to smile. And remember, Ushmatim v'yasisam myself. Do it right down here. Do it to the best of your ability down here. Then you will be zeicha lishmar v'lasei satayah like Adam Arishon the Gan Eden kaidem achem. And if you understand it and you're willing to try for this, remember v'shamar Hashem lekach l'chad v'britza v'chesed. In other words, even down here in this world, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu will guard you. The way He promised your forefathers that you will be able to continue this path, to keep smiling on the outside in your performance of mitzvahs, and to keep that Yiras Shamayim in your heart. The Kabriner explains, every single yid has a tikkun. Ultimately, we each have to come back to our shires. And we have to accomplish what we were created for, whether we do it in this Gilgal or in next Gilgal. If we have to do it, and we're going to have to make amends for the things that we did wrong and for the time that we wasted. So the pasuk is saying, look, the Haya eikev Tishman, the end is going to be eikev, from the lashon of Saif. The bottom line is you're going to have to do what you have to do. Every single Yiddish neshama was created for a reason. There is something you can do that no one else in the world can. Well, Raya, you were created, says the Beis Hamikdash. Because Baruch Hu doesn't create things if they're not necessary. That's why the parsha begins in the plural, Lashon Rabin, Tishmu'un, V'Shemartem V'Yasisim, and afterwards the rest of the parsha is the Lashon Yachid. Moshe Rabbeinu is addressing Klal Yisrael. He says, Klal Yisrael, each and every one of you has a mission. Klal Yisrael at large will survive. Every Yachid will come to his Shayrish, but not all at the same time. Here's where it branches out. But the bottom line is, Saif kol saif ki la yidach imenu nidach. No one's going to be lost. Everyone's going to have to come back. Some people will do it the easy way. Some people only get the message after many times. So the pasuk is sort of crying to us. Eikev Tishman, in the end is you're going to have to listen anyhow. Everyone has to come to his shayrish. Everyone has to come back to the Mitzvah what he has. So why not do it with a smile? Why not do it l'chatchila? It'll only make it easier for yourself and for all those around you. The Kotzker Rebbe said that when he was a child, he had made the following observation. The mikveh was once very, very hot. And a person walked in complaining. But finally, when he was in, he said, this is really Tam Gan Eden. And it took him a long time to come out. The Kotzker said he thought to himself that that is the difference between a mitzvah and an avera. A mitzvah is very difficult at the beginning. Sometimes it even hurts and burns. But when you get involved, then it is the most yishmaka thing. Then you can't have anything that is more tranquil, more relaxing. And avera is just the opposite. From the onset, it may be very, very sweet. But when you realize that you're inside, suddenly the everlasting feeling is one of exactly the opposite of sweetness or relaxation. So the issue is, says the Kotzker, what do you want to have at the beginning, and what do you want to have as something sustained and lasts forever? That's the decision between mitzvah and avera. A little bit of discomfort for a long, sustained, enjoyable life, or the other way around. The Gemara in Masechtas Brachos asks, how do you know that you have to bench after you eat? And the Gemara quotes the pasuk in our parsha, V'yachalta v'savata v'yirachtas Hashem alekach. You will eat, you'll feel satiated and full, you have to bench. The Gemara also asks, how do you know that you have to say Birchas HaTorah before you start learning? And the Gemara quotes the pasuk, Yishem Hashem Ekra Havu Goydel Elikein. The problem is, what do I do with the X's and Y's, so to speak? The missing parts of the equation. How do you know that you have to make a bracha before you eat? For that you don't have a pasuk. You only have a pasuk of Yechalta v'Savata v'Eirachta that you have to bench after you eat. And how do we know about making a bracha on learning after you learn? And the Gemara's response says you don't need a pasuk for those. It's a kal v'chaim. When it comes to eating, we say it like this. Ma'adach, you have to make a bracha after you eat when you're full. If you have to bench Hashem. When you're feeling good about yourself, after a meal. So, of course, how much more so would you have to make a bracha before you start eating? It's a kal v'chaim. And when it comes to learning, we say, if you have to say Birchas HaTorah before you learn, so for sure afterwards. So without getting into the intricacies of that Gemara, but the question has to be asked, why did the Gemara assume automatically that when it comes to eating, the chiddush is that you have to bench afterwards? And of course, you have to bench before. Yet, when it comes to limud HaTorah, it's the reverse. The chiddush is that you have to say Birchas HaTorah before you start learning. And then I'll understand on my own, of course, afterwards. So it said b'shem de Gra basically what the Kotzker gave us in his observation. When it comes to Hanas Olam Hazeh, pleasures of this world, the Iker Hana is before you get it. A person has a taiva, he's mishtaikik, he can't wait for that new house to be built, he can't wait for that new piece of furniture to come. Whatever taiva it is, kosher taiva. Usually, when it comes, it isn't as good as you anticipated. You make $100 before 2 seconds pass, you're already either worried, upset, or thinking how you can make the next 100. How come we only made 100? Nothing ever looks as good as the picture on the box. It's always a disappointment when you take it out from the inside. That's human nature. Then we understand the kal v'chaim. after you eat and you're full, usually you're not so much in the mood of benching Hashem. I mean, you already have it. The food is there already. The pastrami sandwich is never as good after you eat it as opposed to before you eat it. So if you have to bench after you eat, kal v'chomer before you eat, when you still have the taiva and you're still looking forward to it, by hanois ruchnius, it's exactly the opposite. Before you have it, you don't feel that much of a meshicha. You're not pulled to it as much. You sit down to learn, it is difficult. The Yitzhar will make sure that the doorbell will ring, the phone will ring, a certain letter will come in the mail. He'll do everything to try to stop you. And then when you try to learn, your head droops down. You're tired. You try to engage in a chesed project. There are difficulties. People aren't cooperating with you. Instead of thank yous, you get tainas. You have every reason in the world to throw in the towel. It's not gishmak. But after you do it, after you perform it, if you break through and you're willing to absorb all the punches and the stumbling blocks that inevitably the Yitzhar is going to place in front of you, then you feel a gishmak she'en kamayu. When you sit down, the words seem blurry, and you blink your eyes again and again as many times as it takes and study and work, and finally you understand the piece of Gemara. That is one of the sweetest feelings in the world. So therefore, when it comes to limud HaTorah, the Gemara assumes exactly the opposite. After learning, there's no chiddush that you make a bracha. That's when you feel the sweetness. So if the Torah commands us to make a bracha before we start learning, before you have the hana, so it's a kal v'chomer that after you learn, when you already feel the hana, for sure, you have to bench Hashem. You're mechuyev to praise the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Meshech Chochmah explains this a little bit differently. After a person eats, he is much more prone to sin than beforehand. What people say or what they do or what they think on a full stomach is not what they're going to do, say, or think on an empty stomach. The danger is when your stomach is full. Vayishman Yeshuan Vayiva. So if the Torah commands us to make a bracha even after we're full, so it's a kal v'chomer. So I understand on my own, for sure we should do so when we're in the proper state of mind and we have the hachna before eating. On the other hand, by limud HaTorah, it's the other way around. The yikr sakan is before you start learning. Before a person engages and completely immerses himself in the limud, that's when he's too smart for himself. That's where there is a danger that the Torah, chas v'shalom, as Rav Meir Simcha explains it, could be converted to a sam hamaves. But after a person truly tastes the sweetness of Torah and completely gets involved, he's a different person, if he's learning properly. And therefore, if the Torah commands us to make the bracha before we start learning, before the kiddush of HaTorah has taken its effect on your neshama, so it's a kal v'chomer, surely after you start learning, you're much more in a state of mind to properly make a bracha. The Rosh Hashiva of Palm does always suggest, if a person has an opportunity of learning his daf yomi shir in the morning before davening as opposed to the evening, there are many advantages to before davening. Your mind is clearer, the world is clearer still. But the great advantage is that your day is a different kind of a day if you learn a block Gemara before davening. Gemara, the Minchas Alava brings, is Rashi Tevis, Gavriel, Michal, Bephoel, and Ariel, the Malachim. Mimini Michael, Mismaili Gavriel, Mufane Ariel, Mechayr Bephoel, Yareshi Shchinas Kael. We mentioned this pasuk in our nusach of Kriya Shema Lamita. We want to go to sleep with the Malachim protecting us. So the Minchas Alava brings, I think from the Chayza, that a block Gemara before davening helps the Malachim carry your tefillos, carries your shachas up to Shemayim so your tefillos can be accepted. And the Medrash Pinchas brings from the Pinchas Latarza, as important as it is to learn a block Gemara during the week before davening, it is even more so on Shabbos. The Kotzker Rebbe said that a block Gemara before davening is metaher like a mikveh is. And in a sense, that's the Meshech Chochmah saying. When it comes to limud HaTorah, the chiddush is that I can even make a bracha before I start learning. And if you can do that, so there's no question about making a bracha afterwards. But let's get back to the mitzvah in this week's parsha, and that is the Yechalta, the Sevata, the Rachta, to bench. The Chinuch writes I have this Kabbalah from my Rebbe. Yishmerein Kael. Shekol Hazahir B'Birchas HaMazayin, one who is careful with Birchas HaMazayin, Mizanoisav Mitzuyim Loi B'Kavod Kol Yamav. Then his food, his mezainis, the things that he needs to sustain himself, will be made available to him in an honorable way all of his days. Birchas HaMazayin, besides the Birchas HaTorah, is from the only brachas that are actually a diaraisa. We tend to forget that. We're all inspired when we pick up that first piece of matzah, the first night of Pesach, or when we hear the sound of the shofar, or come into the sukkah or take that esrog. But on that same plateau, on that same level, is opening up the bencher and saying, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam hazanos hakol. Unlike other brachas, which are a preparation for the mitzvah, Birchas HaMazon is unique because it is the mitzvah. The mitzvah itself is the benching. And it is a mitzvah d'oraisa. Yet we tend to treat it lightly. And I must confess this is true for myself as well. Sometimes by a Shabbos table, so we put a lot of emphasis at the beginning of the Suda. The Kiddush, everyone stands by attention. The Hamaitzi, the feeling, the inspired feeling, the uplifting feeling, especially Leil Shabbos Kodesh. The Zmirais, the children come up with their shilas. People say their Divrei Torah. And somehow, when it gets to benching, which is pushed off, after the fish, after the soup, after the chicken, after the kugel, after the fruit, and after the dessert, sometimes things tend to peer out. The children are by now either sleeping, crying, or downstairs playing. And the grown-ups look at the clock and they say, oh my, how late it is, and we grab the bencher and we zoom through. But this is the part of the meal that's the deraisa. This is a mitzvah of Fein and Torah. And if we need a boost, well, let's bear in mind what the Chinuch tells us. Who wouldn't do any kind of a skula to try to help us that our mezainas comes b'kavod kol yamav? Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky had a special nusach for benching, besides for the standard camp song that's used for benching. He had a special nusach, not a song, but a kind of a nusach, sort of a chant. And he was very makbid for his children and grandchildren. If the children are going to run around during the meal, let them run around. You don't have to force them to sit out all the conversations, the boring conversations of the older people. But when the time comes for benching, patience, wait, put everyone into position, and everyone sort of sing songs of benching slowly together. Often we bench on Shabbos, and then we have the question when we finish, did I say Ritzei or not? If I didn't say Ritzei, I have to bench over. But the truth is, you know what the real question is? How come you don't remember if you said Ritzei or not? The issue isn't the Ritzei as much as the issue is, obviously, you weren't thinking all that much about the words you were saying. If you were concentrating on the benching, the chances are you would remember whether you said Ritzei or not. But if you were saying the words externally, and in your mind you were already dreaming about wobbling up the stairs after that shult with a good Maisa Bichel, and lay down and get your Shina B'Shabbos Tainig, in all due respect, so that's why you don't remember whether you said Ritzei or not. Stop and think for a moment. The issue isn't Ritzei, the issue is benching. Was I concentrating on this mitzvah asay d'oraisa, perhaps the most important part of a meal? Somebody once came to the closing of the Rav and he asked the Shaila. He was standing there with his tefillah shel yad still on his arm. The ritzuos, the straps, partway around his arm, and he's holding them, and he's saying, Rebbe, I don't remember if I'm before davening and I'm putting it on, or I'm after davening and I'm taking it off. So the Rebbe told him, I think regardless, you can daven over. Even if you did daven, if that's the question that you're asking, one can hardly call that davening. If you're not sure whether you said Ritzei or not, you have to stop and think, even if I did say Ritzei, is that called benching? The Sefer Yisod, the Shorish Avodah quotes the Zohar Kodesh. The Zohar stresses the importance of benching dafka b'simcha. And the Zohar says it is not for naught that one is obligated to bench with a special joy, because that joy, that simcha, gives the kayach, whatever this means we don't know, but it gives the kayach that the Rebbeinu Shalom is mashpia parnasa to people. That's the lashon of the Zohar. Umeyahu chaydu, from this simcha, nosan milach moilado. That is the koyach habracha that opens the channel of parnas. And from here we learn the Zohar goes on to say that a person who benches the way he is supposed to, with a simcha and with a ratzain halayim, not just something that I have to get over with. So the Zohar, when he leaves this world, katzolik mehai alma. Now again, this is just for benching properly and benching besimcha. The Zohar says, asar itakanulei, there is a special place that is fixed for him, that is prepared for him, goyrazin iloyin behechelin kadisha. Amongst the innermost secret chambers, holy chambers. Zakar iu barnash, how fortunate is this person, the nata pekude de more, who adheres, who guards the commands of his master, the yada shvacha de lahain, and he knows their proper praise. And the Yisad B'Shar Shulavayde in Shar Zayin, Perik Tes, goes through the respective simple kavares for the different brachas of Birchas HaMazon. The first bracha, the bracha on the Zaynais, thanking Hashem for the man, for providing the man for Klal Yisrael in the Midbar, which in a sense is the forerunner of our parnasa throughout Galus. And he suggests that you wait a second or two between the first bracha and the next bracha. Let it sink in. Let the thank you bring out its full emotion within you before you forge on to the next bracha. The next bracha really should apply to us more so than at any other time. Birchas ha'aretz, eretz chemda toiva urchava. We know how perilous the situation in Eretz Yisrael is, how everything is unraveling, how b'derech hateva nothing makes sense. And whether someone believes it or not, looking at the matziv of Klal Yisrael on all sides and seeing what is happening on the ground, the facts on the ground cry out that there's only one Rebbeinu Shalom on the world. There is no other havamina of a solution, not politically, not militarily, not based on anything. And every Yid is rooted into Eretz Yisrael. Every Yid has a chelik in Eretz Yisrael that represents his kiyum. Dr. Rabbi Eliezer says, Kol mi shalei omar Eretz chemda toiva rechava bevirchas ha'aretz layatzi yedei chivasai. Again, something that we cannot take for granted, that we have to say slowly with kavanah. The next bracha, the bracha of Rachim, the bracha of Bainei Yerushalayim. I mean, one's whole life is in this bracha. Free us of our tzaras, make us independent, the greatest blessing a person can possibly have. We shouldn't have to come on to matnas basar v'dam. The Yisad B'Shar Shulavayde quotes a Zohar Kaddish, the one who truly feels the tsar of the churban at his suda while he is eating. Is ki'ilu b'na deisei u'b'na kol inun charbei debei makdasha. Then you have the bracha of the Tayvi HaNativ, the Arachmans, and so on. And now perhaps some unscientific practical advice. It takes the average person anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes to really bench slowly and properly, thinking about the words of each bracha, like you said, like it says, stopping between each bracha for a second or two, letting it absorb in. So let's say 4 minutes. Most of the time when you bench, you're in a rush. You're finishing lunch, you have to get back to work. You're finishing breakfast, you have to hop a bus. As we said, Shabbos by the Suda, you're already wobbling up the stairs. So perhaps more important than any other time, take a look at your watch before you start benching. If it's 2:53, then say to yourself, I'm going to bench until 2:57. And if I finish before, penalty. I'm just going to sit here anyhow until 57. You'd be surprised. Slowly but surely you'll start benching slower and with more kavan. It's sort of like the Rambam says, everybody wants to bench slowly. Everybody wants to daven with kavan. But sometimes we claim that we don't have the patience. Our blood pressure doesn't allow it. But at the point that you know you're sitting here anyway, so the roitzani and the neshama, the automatic reflex that is somewhere deep within us, which craves to bench to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be mamshach this bracha, and to do it b'simcha, is going to take over. And what better week is it to be makabel this upon ourselves than the very week of the pasuk of Yechalta v'savata uveirachta et Hashem alekecha. May the Rebbeinu Shalom help we should zeicha to bench and to be benched. There is a mitzvah that we fulfill almost every single day of our lives. From our very young years in camp, we sing it with special joy, and all of our sodas and ice creams depend on it. We mark our bar mitzvahs and chasanas by printing special little booklets with benching. We know that when you say it b'simcha, it brings parnasa to your home. And when you say it carefully, word by word, it opens up the door to all sorts of brachas. We know that Moshe Rabbeinu himself composed the first bracha as it corresponds to the man. We know that Yeshua gave us the words of the second bracha, Neidelecha, for he was the one that took us into Eretz Yisrael, and this bracha represents the love of Eretz Yisrael. We know that David and Shlomo were massacring the words of Rachem that lead up to B'nai Yerushalayim, Baruch Hashem, B'nai Berachamav Yerushalayim, Amen, our whole hope, our whole security, everything that is dear to us somehow evolves around Yerushalayim. Our whole future is there. When Klal Yisrael thought that all was lost after the destruction of Beitar, and the Romans didn't even allow them to bury the dead bodies, eventually HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a nace and restored the hope and chizuk and amunah to Klal Yisrael. The bodies never decayed. Permission was given to bury them. And Chazal and Masak and the bracha of our Tovi, our native, that is part of our benching. We have a whole series of Rachman that really give us the key to all of life. So this mitzvah is so special to us, so dear to us. Yet, unfortunately, for many of us, the way we fulfill the mitzvah on a day-to-day basis is in a haphazard manner, sometimes halfway in a siddur, halfway outside of the siddur. We're getting up from the table when we're halfway through, three-quarters through. Sometimes we have one sleeve in our coat, sometimes both sleeves in our coat, sometimes we have one foot out the door, sometimes both feet out the door while we are still benching. And sometimes we don't even want to wash because we have to bench. And it takes too much time. This is the parsha of the schacter, the savata, of the schacter, the Shem Alakach. And I would like to share with you a very sadistic message chachma that perhaps can change our attitude or wake us up a little bit to the importance of this mitzvah. The Meshech Chachma points out that the Gemara says in the Masechtas Brachos, Daf Mem Ches Amid Mem. Tani Rabbanan. V'nayin lo birchus hamazon min ha-Torah. How do we know that birchus hamazon is min ha-Torah? Shenema, because the pasuk says, "V'yachalta v'savata v'yachta." You will eat, you will be safe, and you will bench Hashem. Anyway, so I only know that you have to bench Hashem after you eat. L'fon of minai, and how do you know you also have to make a bracha? You have to make that hamoitzi. How do you know you have to make a sha'akal, a bayat, and a bayat, and a zaynis before you eat? Zak the Gemara Amid, I'll tell you, it's a kal v'chayna. If you have to bench Hashem when you're full, surely when you're hungry you have to bench Hashem? When you're hungry you have to. So even though the kal v'chayna teaches us that you have to make a bracha before you eat, but when Maisa, the Raisa, points out the Meshech Chachma, the real mitzvah min ha-Torah is to bench Hashem after you eat, and we derive that there's also a halacha and you're supposed to bench Hashem before. It's interesting that when it comes to birchas the Torah, it's exactly the opposite. Over here, the Gemara says in the Masechtas Brachos, Daf Chaf Aleph, "Menayin lo birchas haTorah lefaneha min haTorah." How do we know that before you learn, when you wake up in the morning, you have to make birchas haTorah, you have to make a bracha? Shenema, because the pasuk says, "Ki shem Hashem ekra," I will call out the name of Hashem. Havi gaidil elokein. Come, let us bring greatness to Hashem. Let me expound, let me teach the world, let me pronounce the greatness of the Kadosh Baruch Hu so that it has an effect on me and on others. And the Gemara understands that this refers to the bracha that is said before you start learning. Rabbi Yochanan says, okay, so there's a bracha before you start learning. How do you know that there's a second bracha afterwards? That we know from a kal v'chayna. Not that when it comes to eating food, you make a bracha afterwards. When it comes to Torah, you should for sure make a bracha afterwards. So this is interesting for the Meshech Chachma. Let's contrast the two. When it comes to eating, the main deraisa is that you make a bracha after you eat. There is a kal v'chayna, there is a svara, there is a rationale that we should also bench Hashem before you eat. When it comes to birchas haTorah, however, it's the other way around. The deraisa is that you have to make that birchas haTorah before you start learning. And we derive from a kal v'chayna that there's also an eating of a bracha after you learn. Why do we have over here the thrust of the deraisa going in opposite directions like the Meshech Chachma? Why, when it comes to eating, is the main mitzvah the bracha after you eat? And why, when it comes to learning, we have a deraisa only before you start learning? And agav, there's a subsequent bracha, a supplementary bracha afterwards. But the Meshech Chachma, the answer is simple. You just have to understand what the purpose of the bracha is. The bracha neutralizes the koyach hagashmi, the koyach hatumah that rips a person away from a Kadosh Baruch Hu in regard to the various different things in life. And there is such a koyach hatumah both when it comes to ruchnius, when it comes to limud Torah, as well as when it comes to gashmi, as well as when it comes to eating. Except that it takes effect on opposite sides. For example, when a person is hungry, he tends to be humble. And being humble brings a person closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
opposite of humble. The more a person eats, the more complacent he becomes, the more he begins to dream about himself being a person of power, and the more he eats, the more he begins to dream that he is implementing that power, and he becomes further and further away from the Baruch. The purpose of benching is to neutralize that, is to counter the negative effects that a full stomach can have on a person's psychic, and worse, on a person's neshama. And the pasuk makes it very clear, because right after the pasuk teaches us the mitzvah of birchas hamazon, the schacter, the tzavata, the rachtes, Hashem alekacha, aloretz, atayda shenasalach. So the pasuk goes on to caution us a little bit afterwards. And teichel the tzavata, yivatin kaidin tivnei, you will build goodly houses, v'yasafta, and you will dwell in them. And things are going to start coming your way. Your herds and your flocks are going to multiply. The kesef v'zav yirbalach, and your silver and gold are going to be multiplied. Whatever you do is going to return very handsome investments. And as a result, there is a grave danger. The danger of the ramul v'vecha, that your heart will be lifted up. The schacter, Hashem alekacha, metziach, on the earth and sun, who took you to this great midbar and protected you. In other words, whose survival you depend on. And if this goes really unchecked, then the worst is going to happen. What's going to happen is eventually, the amata duvavecha, you're going to say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand has gotten me all of this wealth. That is, chas v'sholem, what could happen when things begin to unravel. That is what could happen if you don't bench, or if you don't bench properly. So yes, of course, it's important to make a bracha rishayna beforehand. The person eats without making a bracha rishayna, he is considered a ganas, stealing from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by not acknowledging that whatever he has is a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But it's not as important as benching afterwards, because here we really need that birchas hamazon to ensure that the food in our stomach is a bracha to our mind and being an chas v'shalom a curse. On the other hand, when it comes to limit HaTorah, explains the Meshech, it's exactly the opposite. The great danger with limit HaTorah is the attitude that you have before you start learning. If that attitude is wrong, then your whole limit HaTorah is going to send you in the opposite direction of what it ought to. Chazal tell us, Zacha, if a person merits, Nasalei Sam Chayim, the Torah becomes a portion of life. Lo Zacha, if a person does not merit, then the Torah becomes Sam Amavis, a poison. Father Chazal used to tell me that Zacha is from a lesson of to be Nazaki yourself, or Shem Azai Zach, to clarify yourself. If a person cleanses himself properly before he starts to learn, then the Torah brings Chayim, it brings Emunah to him and to the world around him. And it has only a positive effect on those who listen to his Divrei Torah, those who read his Divrei Torah. When the Torah teaches us about learning Torah, it's it's teaching your children. Limud HaTorah in its greatest danger is teaching Torah to others. It's interesting that the Moshe from the Yosef Rebbe points out a fascinating thing. Al Pi Halacha, if all you're doing is thinking in Divrei Torah, you don't have to say Birchas HaTorah. There's all the John holds that you do, but Halacha L'Tafkin, a person is permitted to think in Divrei Torah even before he actually recites the Birchas HaTorah. Preferably, you should say Birchas HaTorah beforehand, but he could think if you can't control yourself. The Halacha, however, we don't have that leniency when it comes to writing. In regard to writing Divrei Torah, there are also various different shittas. You can write Divrei Torah before Birchas HaTorah, but L'maisa, we pass in that you are not supposed to write down that chiddush, the shmakavot that you heard, or a profound thought that you were enlightened with. You can't write that before you recite Birchas HaTorah for the day. Why? Because that's accepted by Moshe, because that's the ikar limit HaTorah. Where others can read it. They can't read your mind, but they can read your writing most of the time. So therefore, here is where you have to preface the limit HaTorah, the kiddush of the Torah, Birchas HaTorah. Now, the Meshech explains that just like by Birchas Hamazon, the Birchas Hamazon after the eating checks the negative effect of the eating, that it doesn't lead you to gaiva, to Kosev Yitzim Yadi. The Birchas HaTorah prior to learning checks your attitude. In other words, if a person learns with the wrong attitude, if a person learns with the objective of trying to show how great he is, or trying to break someone else up, or to catch the rub on a shaila, or let me learn so I can catch that magatir, or let me learn, even though he's not consciously thinking about it, but subconsciously is learning in the frame of mind where, and I am a Talmud Chacham, so-and-so is not. How dare he even come close to me? If that's just a fleeting thought in the back of his mind, that negatively affects the whole effect that the Torah has on him. So therefore, Dr. Meshech makes very pashut. The bracha checks the negative influence or the danger of the respective thing that we're talking about. By Birchas HaMazon, we need the bracha afterwards. By Birchas HaTorah, we need the bracha beforehand to make sure you are approaching the Seder with the right attitude. If your Birchas HaTorah is right, then your words of Torah will have the right effect on others. It'll have a pleasant effect on others. It'll be the derechel dachinoya. If there is no Birchas HaTorah, or the Birchas HaTorah is not said properly, then your Torah is going to have a negative effect on others. People are going to look at you and say, who is that Balgaiva? He thinks he's so much better than me. And you're not going to cause them to want to listen to more Torah. You're going to push them away. Dr. Meshachach, the Mishnah says, everyone has to bench them. Kohanim, Leviim, and Yisrael. And the Gemara asks, Kohanim, and why should I think Kohanim don't have to bench? Answer the Gemara, well, being that Kohanim also eating kachim, they're eating karbanis, so I would think for that you don't have to bench. Therefore, the pasuk has to stress, Yachalta v'savarta, im yesh sezia, if you're full, you have to bench. It doesn't make a difference whether you're eating a tuna fish sandwich or you're a kohen in the Beis HaMikdash who's eating a carbon chatos, or the parts of a carbon ashram that is permissible for him to eat and he's supposed to eat. The Meshech Chacham explains this so beautifully. What's the havamin of the Gemara? What's the maskana? What I would have thought of here, what the Gemara is trying to straighten us out on, is that I may have had the misconception that, look, you sit down to a tuna fish sandwich, you sit down to a turkey dinner, that could have a negative effect on you. That can lead to koshi v'etzim yadi, to gaiva, to forgetting the Rebbeinu Shalom. So you have to be careful to bench in order to cut that off. But the Kayin in the Beis HaMikdash, who was eating from Katzei Kadeshim, or he's eating from the Kadeshei Kalim, the parts that only the Kayin can eat, the elevated levels of Kedusha. A Kayin who's eating a carbon, which is a kapara for the Bailam, which is kulei ruchni, it's more ruchnius than gashmius. I mean, there's no sakana that that's going to lead to gaiva. So I would think there's no reason for the Kayin to have to bench then. So the pasuk, no, it doesn't work that way. If there is a physical pleasure, even if it's kachim, then there is a danger of gaiva. And the Meshech Chacham is pointing a case. Someone makes a neder, he makes a vow that he will abstain from a certain well. So there's a rule, mitzvah is lav lahanishtit. The purpose of mitzvah is not personal hana. And therefore, let's say in the middle of the winter when it's cold outside, if he wants to title himself at that well because he has a mitzvah of tefillah, he can. He made a neder, he's going to abstain from the well. But technically, his neder applies only to personal pleasure. And performing a mitzvah is not considered personal pleasure. However, in the summer, when it's 95 degrees outside, with the heat factor of 110 degrees, and the humidity is very high, and he has a mitzvah to title himself, he cannot immerse himself in this well after he made a neder that he's going to abstain from it. He's going to say, look, I'm performing a mitzvah. Indeed he is. But the fact is that there is a personal pleasure there. I'll never forget, there's an issue on Shabbos whether you can title yourself in a hot mitzvah or not. Many places can say it's also, it shouldn't mamish be hot. But the tzara heter is not getting into the halachic aspect of this. For those that are matir and say that there's a chiluk between derech l'chitza and derech tefillah. Chazal asks you to bathe in a hot water. If you're tabling yourself, just immersing yourself in or out, even if the water is warm, then perhaps it's mutter. So I remember once there was a very hot mitzvah someplace in a bungalow colony. The people were questioning whether they can go into it on Shabbos or not. And one person went in and came right out. And someone said, it's derech tefillah, it's mutter. And the man answered, look, I didn't know derech tefillah, derech l'chitza. I know one thing, that my back was killing me until now, and right now it feels great. You cannot separate the physical reality from the mitzvah. So the havamina was, look, the Kayin is eating kachim, he doesn't have to bench. And so the Gemara, no, it says Yachalta v'savata, if he is full, even though he's full with butter, kachim. But there is a danger of gaiza, and therefore, yes, Hakol chayavim bezuman, Kohanim leviim Yisraelim, even the Kohanim. There's a beautiful beer on the bracha of the Kohanim in the Meshech Chacham, this is Pash. We'll try to get into it a little bit. We'll discuss it more in the Yaakov segment. Chazal was talking the fourth bracha of benching a Kohanim because of the Arugei Data. Data was the last hope to crush the Romans. Rabbi Akiva stood behind someone that he thought was Mashiach. It later turned out to be a disappointment. The Romans crushed the revolt, and the dead of Data were not allowed to be buried. There was a cruel plan by the Romans in order to break the spirit of Klal Yisrael. Eventually, on Chamishah B'Av, permission was given to bury the dead of Data, and the dead never decayed. There was a great mess and a great chizuk for Klal Yisrael. It showed Klal Yisrael that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us even in Gaul. But it seems a bit odd that because of this one incident, one out of thousands of incidents, that Klal Yisrael received chizuk from the Kadosh Baruch Hu in Golus. Chazal saw fit to institute a bracha that we say each and every time that we bench enter the Mesa Chachma. The nest that happened in Beitah, that the dead didn't decay, that Chamshasa Ba'av came and they were Nikol L'Krura, it was not just an isolated nest. You have to understand that with the destruction of Beitah, Klal Yisrael thought they're finished. How are they going to survive in Golus? Their last infrastructure was totally ripped apart in the story. We are Set Echad, and Shivim Ze'evim. We are one lamb between 70 wolves. Listen to any news report and you'll understand that. And here you had Reb Akiva, who thought that Bar Kokhba was going to be Mashiach. He led the revolt that was based in Beitah, and it was such a disappointment. Mamish Klal Yisrael thought that we're not going to survive in Golus. And then a couple of years down the road, we survived. We're still around, despite everything that suggests that we shouldn't. The Yehudei Beitah, the symbol of the ultimate supposed demise of Klal Yisrael. It didn't turn out so bad. There's a great ness, a great miracle. Everyone saw it. Their bodies didn't decay. Their neshamis are alive in Shemayim. Their death down here in this world was as they transition into a better world. They were Nikol L'Krura. One Roman government had diabolical schemes to destroy and downgrade and take out every last drop of self-respect from Klal Yisrael. Came along a Malchus right afterwards that had a different attitude. That Kadosh Baruch Hu controls things. The Kadosh Baruch Hu only lets it go so far. And that's why you also make a bracha of a Torah mikvah to get a better wine by the day. Because wine represents the issue of drinking yayin esach. The fact that we're so distinct and separate and so alone, and yet he survives. Yet the Shekhinah is with us in Golus. The Kadosh Baruch Hu knows where he deposited his kelim. The Shekhinah is with us. The wings of the Shekhinah and the cover of the Hashem Yisbarach are with us, so that when the Kadosh Baruch Hu will restore his own honor, we are coming along. And that is the bracha of Hatovi Ameitav. And that is an idea that a person has to ingrain in himself every time he eats. Because it's all part of a formula that turns his food into a source of bracha, and not chas v'shalom the opposite. If I asked you to define the word now, how would you explain it? The emphasis, the right way to answer the question is, it depends on the nigun. It depends on the context. It depends how it's used. It can have several connotations. For example, you see a little boy running out of the house, skipping toward his friends to play, and there's a little bit of a guilty look on his eyes. And then you see, hey, father, or you hear a mother yell from the window, Maishala, come back here right now. So you know what that now means. It means that it was something he should have done before, and he skipped over it to run to what he likes doing after, and he's being brought back to the present, whether he likes it or not. So that's a critical now. But listen to this now. A little boy is playing in the playroom, the toys, and suddenly the mother yells from the other room, Marshall, come here quickly right now. That now could mean that there's a huge, big fire engine, which the child simply adores and can't wait to see, that's racing down the block. And if he misses the opportunity, he will not see it. Or, Bobby or Zadie are on the phone, about to take off to Eretz Yisrael. They want to say goodbye or hello to their child. Here it's not critical. Here it's something that the child is happy about, the mother is happy about, but the stress of now is to emphasize on the child there's no time to procrastinate. If you don't come now, you'll miss the opportunity. Right. Then you can have someone giving a drasha or a chairman of the board by a board meeting, and he's rambling on, and finally he gets to one point in his statement or his speech, and he says, now, listen to this. So in other words, what he means to say is everything he says until now is perhaps relatively insignificant. It was just a hagdama, a prelude to what he has to say, but now I need your focus. Now I need you to concentrate because this is important. And here's a fourth possibility as to what the word now is emphasizing. Did you ever have a friend, a parent, a rebbe, or do you ever feel that you wind up saying, and now what am I asking you? So what am I asking you to do now already? To put your shoes away before you leave? To write me a letter? To make a phone call? So this now means something else altogether. It's also critical, but it's not in the form of an order. It's in the form of emphasizing your complaint. as if to say, you're rolling your eyes, or you want to get away without doing it. Now, what am I asking you to do already? This now speaks volume. This now is saying that I am asking you to do a little thing, which in your eyes is a big thing, just because you have to do it. But based on the occurrence of that you owe me, etc., etc., this now means who knows how many paragraphs. But Moshe Rabbeinu says to Klal Yisrael, the Ata Yisrael, and now Klal Yisrael, Ma Hashem Elokecha She'el Me'imach, Ki L'Yiras Hashem Elokecha L'Lechas B'chol Derecha V'L'Hava Isai V'Rabbeinu Hashem Elokecha B'chol L'Vavcha V'chol Nafshecha, the pasuk after Chamishin of this etc. How do we explain the word the Ata and now? What does Moshe Rabbeinu mean to say to us when he says now? From Rashi, it is mashma that the Ata is in the form of a loving the Ata. Concentrate on what I'm saying. Moshe Rabbeinu just finished talking about the Chet HaEgel. So you would think, after the terrible sin of the golden calf, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not interested in Klal Yisrael anymore. Yet, Moshe Rabbeinu's message to Klal Yisrael and to us, for as we mentioned before, the whole Chumash Devarim is Moshe Rabbeinu's parting words to every single Yid until Mashiach comes. That's what the pasuk means when it says Ve'ela Dvarim Asher Dibur Moshe El Kol Yisrael. That means to every Yid, to you and to me, because Moshe Rabbeinu is for all of us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed Moshe Rabbeinu all the generations until Mashiach comes. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, you probably think that you've sinned so much, you've blundered so far away from Torah and Yiras Shamayim. You've destroyed your davening, your tefillah, your chesed. You had an Assyrian, and you made up the next time you're going to overcome the Assyrian, and you blew it again and again. By now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is probably not even interested in me. What's the point of me davening or learning? I've done so many events, it's no use anyway. It won't accomplish anything. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, look, I've just explained to you the terrible ramifications of a Chet HaEgel. But despite that, despite this horrific sin of Klal Yisrael sinning mamish by their chuppah, now listen to this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu still says, what am I asking of you? Fear me. Try to serve me. Try to do mitzvahs. And I'll still accept you, despite all the chatoim. Now, can you imagine this? After all you did, HaKadosh Baruch Hu still wants our avodah? On the word Ki L'Yiras Hashem Elokecha, Rashi reminds us, Hakol B'dei Shemayim Chutz Miyiras Shemayim. So here Rashi is explaining perhaps the word now from a different perspective. We think that we control our own destiny. We have it all figured out. We have our retirement plans. We have our pension plans. We know exactly what we're going to do. When we turn 60, we'll buy the condo in Florida. Or we're going to move to Muncie. We know exactly when our mortgage is going to be paid up 15 years, 30 years. We have it all planned out. We want to know exactly what we're doing and how we're going to do it for the next 20 years, for the next 30 years. We're all that way. But the reality is, the way the world says, Mensch tracht in Gott lacht. You have nothing to do with where you're going to be for the next 20 years. The Rebbeinu Shalom decides that. Hakol B'dei Shemayim. Before a baby is born, that baby is shown everything. Where the baby is going to be born, where the baby will leave the world, the house the child's going to own, this person is going to own when he grows up, the job he's going to have, the family he's going to have, whom he's going to marry. It's all predestined. You think you're controlling it. The only thing you really control is a couple of crossroads called bechira, free choice, of going toward Hashem or in the opposite direction. The emphasis, there are two kinds of bechira. There's a bechira that we live with 24/7, every moment of our life. The person sets his alarm clock, does he wake up, say my dani, wash negavasa, go off to daven on time, or does he set the snooze 10 times and he misses Man Kriya Shema? That's one kind of bechira. The person comes home for breakfast, he's in an angry mood, does he bench slowly and say a nice, cheerful good day to his family regardless, where the Chovos HaLevavos tells us to do? Or does he allow his inner frustrations to cast their waves throughout the house and make everyone else feel bad and frightened and angry? All of that is bechira. But there's a different kind of bechira. There's a bechira that comes through in the form of key decisions in life that either reflect our success in our mission for life or failure. You see, we're all here for a reason. And it could very well be, the Gra explains this in the Sefer Eden Shlema, that a person can live here 70 years for one day, for one moment where he has to make a decision one way or another. We don't know when the crossroad is. That's going to depict whether we passed or failed. We do know that whatever our mission is, we'll have to fulfill it. Like Yaina. Yaina was given the mission to tell the people of Nineveh to do tshuva. He didn't like the mission, because if they do tshuva, he'll look like a fool. They're not going to believe him that he warned them about the impending doom. They tried to run away, but it didn't help. Whether he allowed himself to be thrown into the water or was swallowed by a fish, he had to do what he had to do. Eliyahu Navi performed Chiyas Mason on a child. You know who that child was? Was Yaina. That's what the Gemara says in Sanhedrin. It all teaches us the same lesson, explains the Chavetz Chaim in the Sefer Shari Tzion. Whether the person leaves this world, whether he tries to run to the other side of the world, it doesn't help. Physical safety, you will have to do what you were created for. And there are pivotal points in your life where you make the decision, I am either succeeding or failing, and I'll have to do it again at a different time. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, look, you think you're in control of your own destiny. You think I'm asking all that much of you. I'm not asking anything of you. Because 99.9% of the things that happen in your life are going to happen regardless. You have nothing to do with it. Where you're going to live, where you're going to work. You think you control your own destiny. How much is going to be in your bank account tomorrow or in 10 years from now, it has nothing to do with you. Of course, you want to be responsible and try, but the bottom line is it has nothing to do with you. There are only those key decisions that you have to make, whether you're coming closer to Hashem or further away, where you have a bechira and a free choice. So for up to now, what is Hashem asking of you? Your career, your life, what you can dream of owning a nice home, it's nonsense. None of that is in your hands anyway. The only thing that's in your hands are the few important crossroads where you will decide whether you're on a path of Liyiras Hashem or you're going Chas Hashem in the opposite direction. And who knows, you may have to make a decision only once or twice in your life. So now, what am I asking you? I'm asking you to make one or two correct decisions. Everything else is in your hands anyway. Well, to further explore the different meanings of the word Vi'ata, what about that first mashal, where the mother says, come here right now? Vi'ata in the form of a command. I want to share with you an awesome mahalach that the Chavetz Chaim discusses in the Sefer Ahavav Chesed, Perek Yud Aleph, in the footnote. The Medrash says that the word Vi'ata means to do tshuva. Check the Chavetz Chaim, the Ata means now. Why is that tshuva? If anything, on the next words of the pasuk, Ma Hashem Alekacha Shayomei Machkiim Liyira, that's tshuva. But why is the word and now tshuva? Dr. Chavetz Chaim, what is the Iker Koyach of the Yetzer Hara? The Yetzer Hara's power is not in telling a Yid, don't do a mitzvah. Which Yid would listen to the Yetzer Hara if he says, don't do a mitzvah? The Yetzer Hara, for the most part, doesn't even try that. At least not at first. The modus operandi of the Yetzer Hara is, of course you're going to do the mitzvah. What's the shaila? Tomorrow. That's his favorite word, tomorrow. Tomorrow you'll have time. Tomorrow you'll have the peace of mind. Tomorrow you won't be under such pressure to cover your checkbook. And of course he says the same thing to you tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, until there is no more tomorrow. Shlomo Melech says in Mishlei, don't say to your friend, go and come back tomorrow. You know who your friend means? You know who your friend refers to? It refers to your only friend you really have, your Yetzer Tov. A real friend is one who stands with him through difficult situations as well as the good ones. And we also love only your Yetzer Tov will be there when the going is going to get tough and difficult. Don't say to him, come back tomorrow. That's the Yetzer Hara's biggest trick to keep him away. Dr. Chavetz Chaim, Shemati, I heard the Shem Goin Echad, who said that a person has to be Meshaya B'nafsha. You always have to imagine three things if you want to be successful in your Avdas Hashem. Number one, imagine that you only have one day to live. There's no tomorrow, I have one more day. Number two, imagine that the Perek Mishnayos you're learning is the only Perek of Mishnayos in all of Shisha Siddur Mishnah. Or imagine that the Daf Gemara you're learning is the only Daf in all of Shas. Number three, imagine that you are the only Yid in the world. It's you and the Rebbeinu Shalom. And the Rebbeinu Shalom says, here's my Torah, here's my Ratzon, let's see if we'll fulfill it. Bear those three things in mind. And think how it's going to change your life. When do I start doing tshuva? When do I start doing good deeds? I have to do it today. There is no tomorrow. If a person knew that this was his last day in the world, of course he would do everything within his power to give it his best by davening, by learning, by tzedakah. Now, if a person believed there was only one Perek Mishnayos in the world, of course he would learn. Why not? I learned one Perek Mishnayos, and I'm baki b'chol Torah kula. If a person believed there was only one daf in the world, of course he would learn it. He learns one daf, and then he's baki in a little shas. But because we say, such a big shas, I'll never learn it anyway. I'll never finish it anyway. So therefore we don't wind up learning that one daf. Shusha City Mishnah, it's so hard. I'll never finish it anyway. So therefore we don't learn the one Perek. But if you can focus on one Perek and say, this is the only Perek in the world, this is the only daf in the world, you'll learn it. We've mentioned many times the story of a young man who came to Rabbi Freisler and he said, I see so many bachrim finishing the sechtes and the yeshiva nechasim for them. The going is so tough for me, I'll never finish a sechtes. And he wanted to give up. So the Rosh Yeshiva told him, come back tomorrow. And he came back tomorrow, and the Rosh Yeshiva handed him a brachas Gemara. And he said to him, you make a siyum on this Gemara, he will make you a party, the likings of which the yeshiva has never seen. He said, Rabbi, I can't. I know Masechtas brachas are 61 blot. The Rebbe said, open this Gemara. So he opens it to the first page, it's daf beis. He turns the next page, it's daf beis. He turns the next page, it's daf beis. But Rosh Yeshiva gave him a Gemara with 61 blot, or daf beis. 61 copies of daf beis. Finish this and we'll make you a siyum. For months, he learned daf beis again and again and again, until he finished it 61 times. And when he finished that Gemara, they made a siyum for him, the liking of which the yeshiva had never seen. This young man grew up to be a very great Talmud Chacham afterwards. There's only one daf. Think about it. I have no cheshik to learn. I have no patience to listen to shiurim. Only 5 minutes. There's only 5 minutes. There is no other time other than these 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, I could do it. Only one daf. One daf I can do. If you look at it that way, that these are the only 5 minutes in the world, or this is the only daf in the world, then you can do it. And you can do a lot more than you think you can do. And imagine you think you're the only yid in the world. There's no other yid, just you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If I do what I have to do, then the lesson of Hashem has been fulfilled in this world. And the Bria comes to a tachlis. If I don't, then the whole Bria, the whole Sheshes and Ederations is for naught. How could I not do it? How could I be lax in my responsibilities? That's because I'll say, the world was created for me. That doesn't mean that a person should have an attitude. Move over, give me shlishi, the world was created for me. It means to say in terms of responsibility. If I do what I have to do, then the whole world is Zaycha. And if I don't do what I have to do, the whole world loses. Bear these three things in mind, says the Chavetz Chaim, and your life will be different. And this is the meaning of the Yehavta Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol miyadecha. What's the ideal? With your Yetzirah and your Yetzirah, even if Hashem takes your nefesh, even if you have to lose all of your money, how can a person attain such levels? And the answer is right there. Dr. Chavetz Chaim, you have all the messages over here. There's 3 things you have to imagine. These are the words. These words that you are learning now, these are the only words that exist. There are no other words other than daf beis or daf lamed gimel or daf mem, whatever you're learning now. There's nothing else that exists. I am commanding you. It is between Hashem and you. There's no one else in the world. The pass or fail of the world depends on me. Hashem commanded me to do it. I can't rely on anyone else taking over. There's no one else in the world that can do what I can do. Like the Beis said, every yid was created with a certain task, and there's no one else in the world that could do that same thing of a haraya. Hashem created you. Hashem doesn't create things that are extra. If you can do what someone else can do, if someone else can do what you can do, Hashem has made both of you. So it's a notion of tzavcha, it's to me and you. And the third thing is hayom today. There is nothing else but today. There is no tomorrow. It's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Him. These are the 3 things that have to be placed al levavcha on your heart. And that's what the Medrash means when the Medrash says, the word the ata is the strongest message of tshuva. Now. Stop what you're doing right now and put the whole world in the context of now. This black Gemara that I'm learning now is the only black. This mitzvah that I am about to do, I'm the only one in the world that can do it. This day is the only day that affords me the opportunity. There is no tomorrow. Follow this pattern. And this is how the claim. Every decision you make, and he illustrates many examples, will be the correct one. The decision that brings you closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
The shiurim by Reb Fischel schacter, press 1. The shiurim by Reb Yitzchak Isbi the Tal, press 2. The shiurim by Reb Label Shapiro, press 3. The shiurim by Reb